Today is June 15th, 2023. I'm Joan Hershberger, and I'm interviewing Lisa Mason. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Joe.
When did you become a member of First Congregational?
That's been a good question.
You don't want to tell us how old you are?
It's not that. It's that as a kid growing up in this church, does confirmation, is that when you're kind of a member? Or, so when I left to go out of state in a little bit after college, so in the late 70s, 1980s or so. At that point, I was gone for quite some time, and I came back. And when I came back, we sort of couldn't figure out, well, were you already a member or not? So I just went to the membership class in 2014 and made it a second time, maybe,
okay.
or at
so
least
you're
made
a
it official.
two-time member.
Potentially
and
two-time,
I think
or
you could
does
say,
it count going all the way through? I don't know.
Yeah.
I
think you could say born in this church.
Well, I was baptized in this church,
Yeah.
and so where does membership start? I helped with kind of some of the youth leadership stuff. I was confirmed in the church. Here's my third grade Bible from the church.
Good.
So I don't know where we say I first
Does it say
became a
who
member.
was the pastor then?
Pastor at that point was probably who came before Doug Wasson? Who was that? But the teacher was Mrs. Farley. Oh, it was Jim Carroll. That was who's the pastor. Yeah, he signed it there too. This is 1963.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Nice.
So kind of an old piece. I don't use it much. The binding's starting
You
to
didn't
crack.
have to admit that.
Oh, it's just because the binding's
Oh,
cracking.
okay.
It has nothing to do with my faith.
Okay. Say some other pastors that you remember, people. This was the. Let's see. Who do you remember as friends in the church over the years? I would hope that it might be some of the pastors, so you can put them together.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'll put them both together. For some funny reason, the family is still in town. I remember Missy Berwick very, very well. That's Berwick Electric.
Okay.
Missy lived up in my neighborhood. She and I were the same age. We went to Wasson together. And of all things, Carolyn Fowler, I wasn't really a friend of Carolyn's at that time. We were in kind of different high school circles. But Carolyn and her mom, Nancy, they're here.
Yeah.
What's Carolyn's name now? Not Fowler. But anyway, we were all in the mystery as angels together.
Oh, my.
So some reason I have that memory. And of all funny things, Ted Lindemann, I remember very well. He and I are pretty similar age. Our dads were both doctors. Okay. And the doctors' families in that era were very much, it was smaller, and so that was very much a very cohesive social group.
Okay.
So Ted Lindemann, I remember very, very well. There was little Jim Gallegos, and I had a crush on him when we went to La Foret, but I don't know what happened to the Gallegos family at that point. The pastors, and some of them are just incredibly memorable. After Jim Carroll, I have kind of vague memories there. Was best I can tell, it was Doug Wasson. And the reason I remember that is that's who I went to confirmation class with, was Doug Wasson. And I can remember I just had this really profound experience when we had the class at my house one day, and Doug Wasson had said this great thing about, it's not just about you reaching up to God. He says it's also about reaching out to someone else, a human, and then that person reaches up, and then you've got a circuit, and you can make the circuit with God this way, but he said it's even better, two or more are gathered at that point. Yeah. So I remember that all the way back from confirmation class, and it was just a really profound thing for me. Shortly after that, started dating a guy who was Catholic, and he, just to appease his parents, he really wanted his, what's the correct name for Catholic priest, to help with the marriage ceremony, but I couldn't go in and be married in the church because I wasn't Catholic.
Yeah.
But the priest was allowed to marry outside, and so we did a co-ceremony. It was Jerry Jordan
Okay.
and Father Mac
Nice.
from my first husband's church, and so it was a co-ceremony, and as
And where did you have that?
right here.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
my
right.
my first
Great.
wedding was right up there.
Okay.
And we had the big organ, and it was going, and Mom and I, we chose all these great big pieces, and the big one was the V-Door Toccata and Fugue, and that's what I walked out on, and on the exit, and I always regretted that because it's my favorite piece, but then I was leaving it, and I wanted to stay in here. Oh, it's good, but I'm supposed to go out and shake everybody's hand. So that was Jerry Jordan, and it was probably just 2 to 4 years before I got married that I was the youth representative on the search committee, and we picked Jerry Jordan. So I'm very connected to Jerry in lots of ways, and very, very fond of Jerry. Yeah. Then at that point, that's when I left and went out of state. So there's this sort of big gap.
And how many years approximately? Are we talking 20 years?
30 plus, because I left
Okay.
in about 1980 and I came back in 2014. So do the math. That's what, 35, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was so funny. I came back, and there was this great guy named Ben Broadbent. Boy, I was impressed with all these sermons he was giving, and it was so funny. I went to a cocktail party for PBS, and the gal who was kind of the head of public relations for PBS, we started talking, and I said, yeah, I'm really delighted. I'm back at my church that I grew up in. And she goes, which church is that? And I said, First Congregational. And she says, oh, that's the one that guy Broadbent is pastor of. He's very active in the community. And so I liked that part a great deal.
Yeah.
That right there just put Ben up another notch in my peg. The funny thing was, I didn't know Jim White that well, but my dad fly fished with Jim.
Oh,
they were
wow.
fly fishing buddies, and so there was this sort of roundabout connection that then I kind of got to close the loop on it because everybody was telling the story about the Amendment 2 thing, and Jim, kind of putting the heat to, who was it, Moyer, that came in and interviewed about all that. So I had a real good time eventually kind of swinging around and getting to meet Jim, and we've gone fly fishing together and had fun with that. And I just adore Patti.
Yeah.
Just adore his other half, Patti. She is a great cook. My mom was a great cook, and so we just kind of have a lot in common that way too. And so, that takes us, and from Ben on, I was on council, and so, very connected then to our pastors when we had Heather here, and then we had a couple of interims, Nayiri and Don, Nayiri Cargin, Don Longbottom, and now we've got Leanne.
Yeah.
So I kind of have the sequence from Ben on and backtracked into connecting
So
to
you
Jim
touched
White.
all the bases.
Well, pretty close.
much.
Pretty close,
Yeah.
and it's almost
Yeah.
aligned.
That's good for
With a few
30
speed
years, for
bumps in
being
there.
away 30 plus years. Yeah.
There's a few speed bumps in there, but I
Yeah.
got them kind
Good.
of connected at some point.
Good. Can you tell us a favorite story or memory about First Congregational?
It's not as much. Maybe it's not as much about First Congregational, but it's huge about the faith that I've been so fortunate to find here. One that was simple and easy was during confirmation. I can remember so well that whoever was helping teach us, more than Doug Wasson, it was a lot of the other adults, there was never any sort of, this is what you're supposed to believe kind of thing. It was, so what do you think it means to say that we are made in the image of God? There were these great questions, and when you're a teenager, you want to be very adult and cool, and you really want to probe those kind of things. I remember that very well as being a really cool experience because I was not dictated to, I was not lectured to.
Good.
I was asked
That's excellent.
what my
Excellent.
opinion was.
'Cause I think that is the essence of First Congregational.
And it was that back when.
Yeah.
The other fun thing, now I will tell this one, is when I came back to town and I was chatting with Mom, and I was coming to church regularly and often, and we'd never really talked that much about faith and stuff like that, but we started talking about it when I moved back into town in 2014. And I can remember she asked me, she says, so do you really believe in that, like Jesus reincarnation or the resurrection and all that stuff? She kind of framed it that way. I was like, yeah, don't you, Mom? We came every week. What do you mean? Well, and the funny thing was, I knew at some point, prior to that discussion, my mom's she was fairly agnostic. Mm-hmm. I didn't learn that till very much later in life, but then I did. I asked her the question. I said, so Mom, why were we down there? You know, almost every Sunday, except for when my dad was not working, we'd be up at the cabin in the summer or off skiing. But he was off on duty every other weekend, so we were here every other weekend. Yeah. I said, so why did we always go? And she said two really interesting things, Joan. She said, number one, she said it was expected, partly because the social circle, everybody went to church on Sundays. That's what you did. Yeah. But also her mom came from First Congregational Church in Rock Springs, Wyoming. Okay. And so I'm like a third generation First Congregational kid at that point. There was Graham that was First Congregational Rock Springs, and when my mom and dad moved here, Graham expected Mom to raise us kids and, you know, really wanted us raised in the Congregational Church. So there's Mom and Dad becoming members and serving. But the other fun and funny thing she said, so I said, you know, Mom, you don't believe that strongly in it, so why we were there? And the first answer was because it was expected. She says, and the other reason is they do good work down there. So I love that part of it. There was a real social, and that's what this church has done for years, is work in the community. And so she was on committees and doing all sorts of things, not because she necessarily believed in God, but because they do good work down there.
They do good work down there.
Yeah, so you know, that's very connected to then how I feel about this church, all of those pieces.
Yeah. Whoa. What do you value most about First Congregational? That's kind of, you've already kind of touched on
that. But particularly at this point in time in my life, one of the reasons I moved back to town is my husband died, and all my friends down in Santa Fe, they moved on to what they thought were greener pastures like Portland and Santa Barbara. And Santa Fe wasn't trendy enough for them anymore, so they moved. So a lot of my support systems down there were gone. Yeah. And I still had tremendous support systems up here. My friend from back in 5th grade, she is still in town. She's my best friend. And still had a lot of friends that I knew back here, and Mom and Dad were here. Yeah. And so it was wonderful to come back to town and be able to almost slip into those lovely moccasins in this church. Yeah. You know, I walked in and I was home again, Joan. It really was. Yeah. Ruth Rowland, she snagged me right away and got me signed up to be secretary on council. But then consequently, what I value, I've lost my dad in 2019, Mom in 2021. So my family support system by blood is gone. My brother is my only other family, and they're out in California. So this is my family. Yeah. There's when I talk to people, I said, when I had my heart surgery, I had two families that were really taking good care of my church family and then my horse barn family. Yeah. So those are the families that I have now, and the church is a huge part of that community, that family feeling connection of a support system. Yeah. Everybody in this church just came through when I had that big heart surgery. Yeah. And technically I'm by myself here in town. I mean, I got my best friend and I got all sorts of other friends. But if you didn't have a church connection, some people wouldn't have had sort of anything to help them through. Yeah. I did, though.
Excellent. Very, that's from the heart. What advice do you have to give to our congregation as we go into the next 50 years?
Wow. Now that one's going to probably make me stop for just a second. I don't usually stop talking, as you can tell.
I didn't give you these ahead of time.
Yeah, you didn't.
So that's a tough one because that's pretty deep.
You know, the thing that connects for me, I love history, and I think we can rely on our history to say what we've done well over the last 150. Those I don't know that there's some parts that we need to, quote, throw away. I think they're parts that we want to capture. I think this is a great idea because I think we can rely on those things, the stories that I've just been telling, as being helpful, useful for the next 50 years. And at least for me, particularly in America, I think we're in such a challenging and troubled time culturally with so many mass shootings and the gun culture that's in this country now, and the politics being so polarized and so challenging, that having that church family, having the values that I appreciate from this church, the kind of things that I've just been talking about, I think that now we need those values as much as ever. It's a little bit hard because, we hear about people leaving the church in general in America. But I think those are good values that if people need or want, and even if, quote, they don't, these are great values to have as bedrock kind of stuff to help America even for the next 50 years. So I would say that what we've done in the past, the fact that we're very open about things, that we don't dictate this is what you have to believe to confirmation classes and things like that, those kind of values, that kind of warmth that as soon as I came in, and I felt like I was back to this warm and welcoming kind of church. I think those are important things to have for any community, and especially for America right now.
Good. I'm going to circle back to your. When I first came here, I met you in the Trekkers hiking group.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I mean, you were an amazing hiker. And then 6-7 years later, you have this open heart surgery. I think that your resilience is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that as a person, not just physically do you have that quality, but so talk about what other groups you've been involved with the church.
Oh boy.
I know you did the money. What's that called?
It was stewardship, now called the advancement team.
Okay, all right.
And I'm late getting
you headed that up.
Yeah, I did, and I'm still doing it till this fall campaign.
Okay.
And I got to get the committee going again. The surgery kind of put a funny little detour in that I've had a hard time resurfacing, but I promise I'll get back to it.
Now, see, I thought that was only like an 8-week job or something.
It was originally, but just this year we, particularly with Leanne, we made sort of a consensual decision that we probably ought to have some continuity on this, so it isn't just sort of drop for the whole year and then suddenly it surfaces. We really thought some continuity might help. So we're going to give that a try, and I've been willing to field the team through this. And so we'll get kind of a little more active again, but we agreed that after the fall campaign that we'd take the holidays off.
Okay. I think open heart surgery is a good excuse.
Yeah, but now I got to get back on that wagon a little bit. But other things that I've done, mostly when I came back from, in 2014, like I said, Ruth Rowland tapped me and said, would I want to be on council? I've always loved being a secretary, and so I decided I'd be secretary. And the thing that was happening is right at the time, so that was 3 years, a 3-year term, and right at that 3-year term is where we were getting into so much turmoil with Heather and all that transitional stuff. And I like helping the church so much that I decided I'd do a second 3-year term. So that was 6 years. And being on council, especially through, some really kind of rocky times, that took a lot of my time and effort. Yeah. Plus I was taking care of my mom and dad and running my own practice. And I ride horses and I hike and I ski. And so that kept me from doing too much else with the church, but other kind of little impromptu things that I love doing. And then recently, impromptu as in before COVID, Patti would do the Madrigal dinner, Patti White. Yeah. And I love being in the kitchen watching Patti White and then just helping.
She's a magician.
She is a magician. And so just being kitchen staff for the Madrigal dinner is just absolutely a delightful and fun thing to do. And did that once and sort of missed it during COVID, and glad we're kind of starting it back up. But I was gone when we did Madrigal, this this last time. So anyway, I didn't get a chance to resurface on that, but joined the bell choir. And that's kind of a big thing for me. I tried joining the flute choir, didn't get to continue with that. Surgery really limited what I had energy for, and took me a while to have any energy, and blowing the flute was harder than shaking bells. So I went back to the bell choir before, and I haven't gotten back to flute choir. But I was doing flute choir for a bit. I have done bell choir, and that is so much fun. Yeah. My mom called, "Oh, you're going to go bang the bells, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to go bang those bells." It's a fun and funny thing. I grew up playing piano, and then in 5th, 6th grade, started up playing flute. So I know how to read music. I know of music. I'm not naturally musically talented. I'm a studied, can do music. And the bells are just so hard for me because the easier pieces to play, the notes are down in the lower. But I'm a flute player, and so I'm more comfortable with the upper register. And so reading the lower, it's like, now, is that the B or is that the C? So I'm always slow. And it's very much percussion and rhythmic in a way that I've never had to do in piano. In piano, you're doing all of it, so you got your own rhythm. Bells, you have this intermittent rhythm that you're coming in on. And that's really hard for me. It really is. So there's bells, choir, flute choir, council. Once I got off council,
women's retreat.
Well, yeah, those are the one-time opportunities. Yeah. There's so many good one-time opportunities here that are great fun. You know, when we'd have at La Foret, we'd have the Rocky Mountain Conference, and I'd go and participate in that. So lots of one-time things like that. You'd have to give me the question, and I'd have to sit down and kind of think.
Well, they give Plymouth Circle. I have no idea what that is.
Oh golly, Plymouth Circle! I know of it.
That's just a suggestion.
But I'm not in it.
I know you were in Trekkers, and I know you from the women's retreat, and so.
As soon as I heard we had a hiking group, boy, I was all over that. I was like, that'll be fun too. So. But I have to sit and think if there's others that I'm kind of big ones that I'm missing.
6 years on council, that says a lot.
That was enough. And I really did mentally have to take a huge break. I really did.
Yeah.
Because it was really hard work. It really was.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think we covered quite a bit here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I like your energy.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you moved away for 30 years.
Yes, right. Well, I love telling stories. Yeah. And I especially love this place, and so it's easy for me to tell stories. It really is. Yeah. So this stuff is fun for me. Good. It really is.
Okay.
And I'm not shy, as you can tell, about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's so evident that you love this church. So,
I do.
That comes out.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.